Hello friends, this is Grace and welcome to my channel and welcome to Creative Exercise video number 23. This is going to be the second to the last video that I'm doing in this series. If you've watched this series since it started, thank you so much for hanging in there. I hope that you were inspired by all of the prompts that I was able to share with this particular series. If you're new to my channel, this is a series that I was doing for the year 2024, and the prompts that I have been using were based off of a book called Daily Creative by Todd Henry, and the link to the book is always in the description box for this particular series. And for the prompt for today, it is titled Just One Song. And it says, whatever you are working on today, how can you approach it as if it's your first time? Approach each project like a beginner and treat it like it's the only one you've ever worked on. So I gotta say, at first this sounded easy. Like, oh yeah, work as a beginner. So I started this kind of in, I don't want to say cocky, but I was a little cocky here because I was like, oh yeah, I can create a page like what a beginner would do. However, I learned very quickly that experience makes a big difference. Now I understand what the author was saying about create something like as if you are a beginner so that you can kind of see it with fresh new eyes, and also the idea of simplifying things, right? Because sometimes the more knowledge you have of a certain idea, or like if you certain what's the word I'm looking for, or skill, right? If you've mastered a certain skill, sometimes you make it more complicated than it should be. So I understand the idea of simplifying it as if you were a beginner. However, there are things that I was doing along the way when it came to this layout that became, it's like second nature, but it wouldn't be second nature if you were a beginner. I hope I'm making sense here. I'm just sharing with you my experience. Again, the idea is really great. I just had a hard time with it because I already know it. Just okay, so if we were to translate this with driving, right? So if you've been driving for many years, right? There are things that is just second nature. You don't even think to put your car in drive, or the first step is to put your feet on the brakes, and then move your thing I don't know what it's called, your clutch thing, right, to drive. Like, there are some things that you just kind of do, and it doesn't give you anxiety thinking, okay, how do I start this? Or if there's issues, how do I continue? Things like that, right? Whereas if you are a beginner, it's just really the basics. So what I'm trying to say is that's where I had a very hard time with, is just really sticking to the basic. Because I had initially planned this layout to be quite simple. A block on the bottom, a little block on the top. The photos will be on the bottom. I did plan that I was going to have banners on the top, just because I felt like it could be an easy design that a beginner can do. But then I veered, and I guess my second nature, or like it's my MO, or the way I think that after you do the basics, you try to create your visual triangle and you add things here and there. And so I should have stopped at the very basic, but I did not. And I think that comes with experience. Like, the more you do something, the more things just kind of become natural to you. Like I'm thinking adding these stars, that I feel like that's kind of a more second level thing and not the basics, but I added it just because I felt like it needed a little bit more of that, right? Or the other way around, where I could have done the stars first and not even bother with the strip on the background, but I felt like the stars were getting lost if I just added it in between those two blocks of paper. Matting the photos, I feel like that could be basic, but at the same time, I also feel like with experience, you know that if you have a busy background, you have to match your photos in order for it to stand out. So those kinds of little things, I feel like a beginner won't know this. Maybe if a beginner is already like used to design, graphic design, or some kind of arts, right, that it can kind of flow through the same, that knowledge can flow into creating in the paper crafts world. But if you're like a true beginner, I feel like this page would have taken somebody a little longer than what I have, than the amount of time that I've put into it. So anyways, so if that makes sense to you, then you're like me. If not, don't worry. If you're still kind of in the beginner, like if you think like a beginner, don't worry as well, because like I said, I feel like there's value in that, especially if you're feeling like you're not, you don't have your creative mojo, and also if you want to go back to the basics, because that is always also a very good thing, if to go back to the basics so that you don't complicate things, because there's beauty in simplicity as well. Okay, enough of that. So I am now punching some paper strips over here, and my goal is to fill up that top part with some paper strips, paper banners, and that's another reason why I chose kind of a more subtle paper to work with. One of the things that, so if I've not said this already, I'm using a pre-made homemade kit, and I am trying to use up this homemade kit. I've been using a few of these homemade kits for the year, and I'm kind of down in the last few papers that I have, embellishments and things like that. So one of the things that I'm doing, just so I can have some variety of papers on that top, is that I'm going to make my own pattern paper with the washi that I have picked specifically for this homemade kit. And I'm going to use a couple here, just and I'm just putting it on white cardstock, and I'm just going to run it through. The first one I ran it to on the edge, as you can see, that yellow one. But with this one, I want to do it horizontally, and that's because I feel like if I do it vertically, the punch wouldn't go the way I want it to go, and it wouldn't show the photos, or sorry, the cameras the way I wanted it, because I wanted the cameras to kind of lay horizontally on that banner. You're going to see it as I punch it, but that's why those strips of paper are the way the direction that they're going, and then the yellow is different. And I'm just using a punch. Of course, you can do this with your paper cutter and then just cut the notches with some scissors, but I'm trying to make it easy for me. Again, I'm not sure if this is considered a beginner page, because I don't know if a beginner would know how to, I shouldn't say no, but will kind of figure out that, oh, I don't have enough pattern paper, so might as well use my wash. I don't know. I might be wrong. Like, I don't want to say that a beginner scrapbooker won't think about these kinds of design ideas. But at the same time, I also feel like there is something to be said with experience. Okay, enough chatter. I added some embellishments. I did also add my title on the left bottom side of the paper with some vellum so that it will stand out. And then I added some die cuts for embellishments. Thank you so much for watching. Happy December, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye now.